What's up, you guys? Adam here with Anabolic Climbing. I know it's been a minute, and I've been testing stuff and wanted to check in. So, at this point, it's been about 8 weeks on testosterone, maybe a little bit more. And just going to give you a quick overview on my experience running tests, the doses that I use, some lessons that I've learned along the way, and just what I would consider optimal use based off of my limited experience versus the direction that I opted to go in. So, in general, testosterone is probably your best anabolic of choice. It's bioidentical, your body knows what to do with it, and at lower doses, it definitely can help you out either reaching superphysiological levels or replacing your endogenous production to be higher than what it would be on its own. If you guys remember my last round of blood work, I had Anavar helping me get a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger, but it probably suppressed my testosterone levels down to the 450s, even though I was on HCG. So at that point, I opted to reduce the Anavar, add it back in once I realized that my liver and kidney functions were good. Got organ imaging. Guess what? Liver and kidney function are great. I have a great set of organs. Ultrasounds are dope. Followed up on my creatinine levels, which are now thankfully back in the reference range. And back on at it again. Even adding some ezetimibe so that I could lower my LDL. So that sort of brings us to testosterone. I started at about 150 milligrams a week of testosterone propionate. I opted for propionate over an anthate for two reasons. Honestly, yeah, two reasons. First and foremost, shorter ester. It's easier to evaluate how I feel on test immediately because the half-life of test prop is between 19 to 24 hours. So in and out of my system, super fast. I could start feeling the effects of getting it really quickly versus an ester like an anthate, which even though it's super tolerable and has a longer half-life of 4 to 5 days, it would take me a couple of weeks for it to fully titrate up. So felt it immediately, felt really good. Let's start talking about it, because after about a month I escalated the dose to 200 milligrams. I'm going to go and share my experience on test first, then sort of talk about how it differs a little bit from if I were doing this with an anthate and going from there. Also, the testosterone I'm taking is pharmaceutical grade, not from an underground lab, so have a pretty good understanding of what I'm getting myself into, or at least as far as quality control from batch to batch. So let's talk about my weighted pull-ups, my crimps, my bench, my deadlift, my squat, some potential confounding variables, and what I expected versus what I got versus potentially what you could expect. So my squat went from about 185 to 250. My deadlift went from 225 for reps to 315 for sets of 5. I added 20 plus 20 pounds on my dumbbells on my bench press from 55 to about 75. My weighted pull-ups went from 45 pounds for 6 to 60, or 45 pounds for 5 to 60 for 5. And my crimp strength went from plus 30 pounds to plus 50, or to plus 45. All of this while the scale went from about 158 pounds to, when I last weighed myself, about 166. So in my time on anabolics, we went from 154 pounds to 166 pounds, and leaner in the process. Are those results typical and things that you could expect? Kind of. As I've talked about before, I've been bigger than this before. I spent my early 20s really into bodybuilding. So I also haven't squatted or deadlifted in probably 15 years. So for me to make a 100-pound jump is not unreasonable. A lot of that is muscle memory. Those strength gains while I'm hitting new PRs on deadlift now, I'm still not hitting PRs on squats. I still have much more room to grow for my legs. They used to be my strongest body part, and I am sure as I get back into this, 300-pound squats are on their way. It's just going to take some time. I think I'm closer to a 400-pound deadlift just because I've experienced deadlifting close to that range before. What is new, though, is the pull-ups and the cribs. So pull-ups were one of my weakest exercises back when I was bodybuilding. Going from, when I weighed 175 pounds when I was still bodybuilding, I could not do more than 2 or 3 pull-ups. So to be doing plus 60 pounds for 5, that's definitely new strength and uncharted territory for those strength gains. And the same could be said for crimps. To be doing 7-second hangs on 20 millimeter edges with 45 pounds while I weigh an additional 11 from when I was initially testing, that is obscene strength gains versus when I started. So I'm frankly over the moon on that. I think some of that's the Anavar, I think some of that is the training, but all in all, the level of progression that I've had over the 8 weeks on test and the 4.5 months on Anavar plus test is frankly awesome. I am super, super happy about it. So let's talk about testosterone enanthate versus propionate, and then let's sort of go into my dosing, what I chose to do versus what I think is more optimal, all things considered. So the reason I like prop over enanthate, just really quick, is it's going to keep my serum levels a little bit lower. If I were taking 150 milligrams of testosterone enanthate, it's probably going to give me similar levels to what I'd get on 200 milligrams of prop. If I'm taking right now 200 milligrams of prop, which would mean, the enanthate, if I were taking similar doses, would probably have my overall testosterone levels about 4 times higher, which is a fuck ton. And really, the reason I like test prop on this, where my levels are probably between 12 to 1400 nanograms per deciliter, is I don't need to get any bigger. I'm gonna, because I want to, and because it's fun, but I do not think that you need to run over 120 milligrams a week of enanthate or 150 milligrams of prop if you were trying to optimally use testosterone for climbing. And you may reasonably say, hey, but Adam, you're using more than that. Surely there are benefits to being super physiological. You're getting all these strength gains, and all of that is true. I'm getting way stronger, but my strength to weight ratio is getting bigger, or is getting better. But if I were trying to push from V13 to 14, V14 to 15, I would be super mindful about the additional tissue that I put on. To be putting on 7 pounds in 8 weeks, I think is frankly unsustainable. And sure, I'm doing this in a calorie surplus. I am trying to grow. I could very easily try to counteract this with an appetite suppressant or another fat burner, and we're going to run that test after this 6-week training block. But, if I were trying to diet down and just hold on to muscle, running a TRT dose and getting leaner is probably the optimal way to go about things. And the reason I say that is twofold. Number one, it's going to keep your testosterone elevated when it would otherwise be crashing because of an extreme weight cut. And number two, you don't need the extra size. If your goal is to change your strength to weight ratio, then sure, you could bump up the test and get stronger, and that's super cool. But if I were an 145-pound climber and I was trying to drop to 140 and just hold on to all the muscle I could do that on 120 milligrams a test. I don't need more. So, yeah, in general, I have different goals. I'm kind of modeling myself off of the Iranian climbers that are just as big as and explosive as possible. If you look at the Iranian speed climbers, they're huge. Those guys are 5'6", 175 shredded. Those guys are massive. I don't think, and by the way, the Americans aren't. The Americans are much leaner, much more slender, and more explosive, to be honest. I think that's probably optimal for climbing harder, but I want to be big and explosive. That's the path that I want to go down, so that's what I'm opting for. And, with that information, you can make your decision accordingly. If you're on this channel, you're probably curious about PEDs. You probably want to have a sort of second growth spurt of newbie gains. That's what I wanted to do, and I would super respect it if that was the direction you wanted to go into. I just want to make sure that I'm sharing the experience of what I think would be optimal and letting you know why I make the choice that I make for me versus what you want to make for you as an enhanced athlete or as just a person that's trying to use testosterone responsibly as a climber. So, what would testosterone do to your climbing? I think the added strength will help you in the intermediate ratings. It'll give you better strength. It'll give you better recovery. My bicep feels great, by the way, which is better than it's felt in a long time. I am super cautious around my fingers. I shock loaded my right hand the other week. Finger still feels okay. It was a little tender for 2 days, but no big deal. I could take, my sleep has gotten so much better since getting on test. I have had garbage sleep for probably the last 20 years. I could nap again. I'm sleeping another hour a night. I'm a huge fucking fan. But, the swelling and tenosynovitis that I have on my right finger is something I have to be mindful of, and that's okay. Work around it. As long as you're mitigating your risk of injury, which you're going to have to do as an older athlete, I think you should go and have fun. Last thing, I think I mentioned in my previous video, I'm not sure, that I've been working with a coach, and part of that means that I've been climbing less than I am used to. Before I would climb 4 to 5 days a week. Now I'm climbing once or twice a week at most and training another 1 to 2 times a week. And the added rest makes a huge difference. I'm deloading more frequently. I am taking more rest than I frankly have my entire climbing career. And while I was hoping that being enhanced, it would let me climb more, I'm climbing less, and I'm feeling better, and I'm getting noticeably stronger. Shout out to Dr. Climbs. Davis is freaking rad. You should totally look him up. As far as I know, I'm his only enhanced client, but definitely a great guy to work with if you have injuries like I have, and has set me up for a tremendous amount of success. So Davis, you are rad. Go check him out. But yeah, been really enjoying testosterone so far. Could I potentially up my dose more? Totally. Am I going to do that? Not right now. I think 200 milligrams of prop a week is about as high as I need to go. I'm still gaining a pound a week. I don't think that's going to continue for too much longer. Maybe for another 6 weeks at most. But after this training block, I am going to go on a cut, and we're going to try out 2 new compounds. First and foremost, retatrutide. That's going to be fucking cool. And we're going to bring in SLU-PP332 again to assist on the weight cut. And we're going to figure out how much weight we hold on to, how much muscle we hold on to as we get into a caloric deficit for about 6 weeks. And it's going to be cool. I'll continue to post some climbing footage. I might throw in some lifting footage. And yeah, so far, being about 4 or 5 months in on the enhanced journey, I've been really enjoying it. Really glad I opted for the decision that I did. That doesn't mean that anyone else should take gear. If you're a child, if you're a teenager, please don't fucking do that. If you're an adult, make sure you're training consistently, you're on top of your blood work, your nutrition is super locked in before you make this choice. But, between the choice to go enhanced and to work with a coach has made it a lot safer for me as far as injury is concerned. Other than that, expect more dynos in the coming weeks as I continue my dyno training for Rainbow Rocket next year. I appreciate you guys for coming by. As always, be responsible. And yeah, thanks so much for hanging out. If you guys want any other compound reviews, if you want any other insights into my training, don't hesitate to let me know. I'm considering starting a Discord for folks to talk about what compounds they're using, asking about or to be able to ask questions more accessibly to me. If you're interested, please leave a comment in that below, especially if you made it this far. But yeah, this is Adam with Anabolic Climbing. Appreciate you guys so much. Take care, and I'll see you soon.